Welcome to TPM Vid's Disney Beat, where we talk about all things Disney. If you're new to the channel and like what you see, hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon to be notified when we upload a new video. You can also find us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Disneyland Paris is the most beautiful Disney castle park. Imagineers pulled out all the stops and filled the park with so much detail. There are probably a lot of things you've never noticed. So today, let's go on a little scavenger hunt, explore some theme park history, and count down 7 hidden secrets at Disneyland Paris, Part 2. Number 7. A tradition Walt Disney began at Disneyland in 1955 was using the Main Street windows to credit all the major contributors involved in creating and building the theme park. This tradition continued on at Disneyland Paris, and one of the first windows you need to find is in Town Square above the Bixby Brothers shop. This window pays tribute to all the extremely talented lead Imagineers for each land here at the park. Jeff Burke was the Imagineer responsible for Frontierland, Tim Delaney for Discoveryland, Tom Morris did Fantasyland, which included Sleeping Beauty Castle, Eddie Soto for Main Street, and Chris Tietz for Adventureland. And I love how the tagline at the bottom is "Our business is making you smile," because it's true. It's hard to not take in all the details at Disneyland Paris and not smile. Then as you make your way down Main Street, you'll find the Main Street Gazette on the right-hand side. Now, these windows honor Marty Sklar as editor-in-chief, who at the time was the president of Walt Disney Imagineering, and Tony Baxter as managing editor, who was the creative executive at the time and oversaw all of the Euro Disneyland project. Then on the other side of the street, just to the right of the Emporium, you'll find this window for the Main Street Marching Band. It honors Michael Eisner, former CEO of the Walt Disney Company, and Frank Wells, then COO of the company. Fun fact, Disneyland Paris is the only park where Michael Eisner has a window on Main Street. So next time you stroll down Main Street, USA, see what other windows you can notice. Number 6. Sleeping Beauty Castle here in Paris is much different than Sleeping Beauty Castle at Disneyland in California. Since France is filled with dozens of real castles, Imagineers approached the design a little differently. They pulled a lot more inspiration from the castle in the 1959 film to truly create a vibrant, fantasy-inspired centerpiece. First off, the color of the castle was chosen so that it would pop against the frequent gray skies of Marne-la-Vallée. That's the city where Disneyland Paris is actually located. Back in 1992, this was the only Disney castle that featured vibrant colors. It wasn't until decades later that the other parks took inspiration from Disneyland Paris and followed suit. Now, a little detail not many people notice is how all the gold ornaments that decorate the castle are either flora or fauna, which also happen to be the names of 2 fairies from Sleeping Beauty. Now, when looking at the castle from afar, it's hard to see the detail, but if you get up close, you'll notice all the gold ornaments are actually a variety of plants and flowers. The flora. Every single piece is gorgeous. Now, as for the fauna, aka the animals, the 2 solid gold spires have a little hidden animal that actually pays tribute to France. Now, they may look like little dots, but when we zoom in, these are actually snails, or as they say in French, escargot, or escargot. They were added by Imagineers as a little tribute to the popular French cuisine. But you'll notice they're all facing towards the top. It's said they were placed this way, signifying them trying to run away from the kitchen so they won't get eaten. I mean, what a cool little detail. I gotta say though, escargot is pretty delicious. Have you ever tried it? Number 5. Adventureland here at Disneyland Paris takes us into many different world regions, but Imagineers' first bit of inspiration actually came from the Morocco Pavilion at Epcot. You can definitely see the Moroccan influences here in the Adventureland Bazaar. This is probably the most unique version of Adventureland, especially when we compare it to the original land at Disneyland. Now, an iconic Adventureland ride Paris does not have is the Jungle Cruise. Back when Disneyland opened in 1955, it was the headliner attraction of Adventureland. Walt's initial inspiration for the land actually came from a nature documentary series he produced called True Life Adventure. Well, as you approach the entrance into the Adventureland Bazaar, take a look at the tiles at each of the ends of the arch. You'll notice there's a world globe with a compass around it, and Imagineers did this to pay tribute to the intro of the True Life Adventures series. I mean, that was the original inspiration for Adventureland, so what a cool little tribute. Then in each of the corners, there's another decorative tile with a little symbol. This actually spells out WDI for Walt Disney Imagineering. Do you see it? Well, here's the W, D, then the I. I always love seeing Imagineers leave little tributes to Imagineering because without them, we'd have none of these details. Number 4. Discoveryland takes the place of Tomorrowland, but like the other parks, the headliner attraction here is Space Mountain, which in this case is now Hyperspace Mountain. The ride originally opened as Space Mountain from the Earth to the Moon, but it wasn't there on opening day in 1992. Space Mountain was part of Discoveryland's Phase 2, and it didn't open until June of 1995. Now, the original plans for Discoveryland called for an attraction pavilion called Discovery Mountain. It was essentially going to be a huge dome that housed multiple attractions. This included a 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea walkthrough attraction with a restaurant, a drop tower ride, a clone of Horizons from Epcot, an indoor station for the Disneyland Railroad, and finally a high-speed roller coaster in the dark. Well, as construction went forward for what was then Euro Disneyland, they found themselves severely over budget. It was decided that Discovery Mountain would be moved to Phase 2. But if we look at Disney's track record with Phase 2s, we know they usually don't come to fruition. Well, after Euro Disneyland underperformed for their first couple years, they needed something to draw guests into the park. Now, everyone loves a good roller coaster, so they move forward with plans for a modified Discovery Mountain with just the coaster and an outdoor lagoon with a Nautilus walkthrough. Crews started building Discovery Mountain, and when the Nautilus opened in July of 1994, the outdoor portion of Discovery Mountain was pretty much complete. They even had the Discovery Mountain marquee in front of the attraction. Everything was set for Discovery Mountain, which is why today, if you look at the bridge in the queue, you'll see decorative DM logos for Discovery Mountain. This relic of the past is just hidden here in plain sight, and every day, thousands of guests just walk right by and don't even notice. Now, it wasn't until August 3rd, 1994, that Imagineers decided Discovery Mountain would be changing its name to Space Mountain. This last-minute change was all due to marketing efforts. They needed to pull out all the stops so this ride would be as successful as possible. Disney already had a well-known brand with Space Mountain at 3 other Disney parks, so the switch just made sense. Thankfully, Space Mountain proved to be extremely popular as it brought more guests into the park. The first time the resort reported a profit was the first quarter with Space Mountain. So, in a way, this high-speed roller coaster in the dark saved Disneyland Paris from going bankrupt. Now, I wonder if they'll ever change Hyperspace Mountain back into the original Space Mountain. Now that would be cool. Number 3. The Liberty Arcade can be found on the left side of Main Street. Not only does this provide an indoor bypass to Main Street, but it's also an attraction in itself. Lined with antique gas lanterns, it was inspired off European shopping arcades. The Burlington Arcade was Imagineers' first point of reference. Then they explored some of the arcades here in Paris. Although there was European inspiration, the decor and theme of the Liberty Arcade gave it the Americana feel that tied it into Main Street. It was also really fitting to have an arcade honoring the Statue of Liberty. Back in 1886, it was a gift to the US by the people of France. It was a way to honor the alliance between the two countries during the American Revolution. Lady Liberty was the perfect link to the French culture. Each of the windows inside is its own exhibition, which explores the construction of the Statue of Liberty. I mean, they're all very detailed, but there's a little secret attraction hidden in the middle of the arcade. As you make your way to the halfway point, you'll come across these beautiful mosaic tiles on the ground and some red curtains on the left side or the right side depending on which way you're coming. Now, there's a painted sign that says "Step back in time and relive the grand spectacle. See the dedication." Well, if you make your way past this mural and sneak between the curtains, you'll be transported to 1886 with a tableau diorama of the Statue of Liberty's inauguration. Now, the dialogue is all in French, but you can still appreciate all the detail. The first couple times I walked through here, I never noticed anyone going in or coming out. I had no idea there was a room beyond the wall until I started exploring a little more. But it was such a cool hidden gem to discover. You need to check this out when you're at the park. Number 2. Hidden inside Sleeping Beauty Castle is one of the best animatronics at Disneyland Paris. In the dungeon of the castle, you can find the Dragon's Lair, which a lot of people tend to miss. There are a couple different entrances which can all be found on the left-hand side of the castle. Now, once you're inside this dark and dimly lit dungeon, you're met with a large and intimidating dragon just sitting in a pool of smoke. About every 5 minutes, he wakes up, and it really shows off the size of this figure. It's a very impressive animatronic, and I stayed here for a good 15 minutes just watching it. Now, although this is in the depths of Sleeping Beauty Castle, the dragon isn't Maleficent. It's easy to think it's her with these light fixtures in the cave and her iconic horns on the attraction sign, but it is not. Maleficent is black and purple, and this dragon is green. So, who is this? Well, it's actually Merlin's dragon that he's now keeping as a prisoner chained up in the basement of the castle. At one point, it was pitched to have the skeletal remains of the Maleficent dragon in the dungeon, but that idea was scrapped. To this day, Disneyland Paris is the only Disney park with a dragon under the castle, and that just makes it even better. Now, the green hill to the left of the castle is actually the top of the Lair. But is it just me, or from this angle, do these rock edges kind of look like Maleficent's horns? Is this a little hidden reference, or just a coincidence? What do you think? Number 1. Disneyland in California is the only theme park Walt Disney was able to see himself. But here at Disneyland Paris, there is one specific item on display that actually belonged to Walt. So if you head inside City Hall on Main Street, you'll find a lot of really cool stuff in here. On the back wall, there are some construction photos and the original Euro Disneyland park map. Now, on the left-hand side of the room, you'll find this picture of Walt Disney with a medal in a separate frame. Well, this medal actually belonged to Walt Disney, and it's the Legion of Honor medal he received back in January of 1936 in Los Angeles. Walt was given the award for his work at the Disney Studios and for his contributions to shaping the animated art form. Prior to receiving the French award in 1936, Walt was no stranger to France. He and his wife Lillian took multiple trips here, and in 1918, he even served in the Red Cross Ambulance Corps in France. Now, above the medal, there's also a framed piece of paper. When Euro Disneyland opened in 1992, the French Republic issued a certificate promoting Walt Disney to a higher ranking of Officer of the Legion of Honor. Now, during the day, the line to get into City Hall was quite long, but just before park close, it's easier to get in and get a sneak peek at this Walt Disney gem. So, have you ever visited Disneyland Paris? Do you have any favorite hidden Disney secrets or details? I'd love to know. Leave a comment down below to start a conversation, and don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed the video.